to a fabulous guest artist masterclass, piano masterclass that is about to start with our wonderful esteemed guest here, Henry Wong Doe, brilliant pianist. You can see the breadth of his very impressive experience and background on the back of this program, but just some very brief highlights. Henry's a native of New Zealand. He used to teach here at Hunter College quite a few years ago when I started here, and is now on the piano faculty and his keyboard area chair at Indiana University of Pennsylvania. As you can see in the program, he won the audience favorite prizes at the Arthur Rubinstein, Busoni, and Sydney International piano competitions. So audiences love him. This we know, and he has played in many fantastic venues with famous orchestras and very greatly renowned conductors. Henry will also be playing a guest artist recital tomorrow night here at 8:00 p.m., including Beethoven's Waldstein Sonata, Bach Busoni's monumental Chaconne for solo piano, and Margaret Bond's Troubled Waters, and some new pieces that he commissioned composers from his Henry's really groundbreaking Perspective series, including one for piano and electronics. So please try to come to that if you can tomorrow night at 8. So without further ado, we have a fabulous program here with two wonderful piano majors, Hongjae Peng and Brenda Quattrini, playing Bach and Schumann. And so let's get started. Make sure your cell phones are off and all that good stuff. And Henry, I will make note when it might be time to change from number 1 to number 2. So let's please give Henry a wonderful round of applause.
months to go before your recital, right? So you got some time.
My hands feel very cold.
Very cold, all these things that happen, you know, when you're a little bit nervous. So I think, first of all, you know, playing Bach is challenging because there's so many notes, and maybe your focus is always kind of like, you know, what's going to happen next? Can you really make it and everything? My advice to you, and I know that we don't have much time together, I think that you're doing a great job. Like, I think you should just try to relax a little bit more about it, because I think you have a lot of the basic elements of this piece now. I think you know, even when you had a few issues going on with your left hand, did you notice that it was mostly your left hand that you were having some memory slip? The left hand. Left hand. Yeah. Did you notice that? Yeah. So just we could address that to begin with. What kind of strategies do you have to think about how to improve your memory? Do you have any kind of method?
I think maybe left hand practice with singing right hand.
Singing right hand melody. Okay. So you do a lot of that left hand work already by yourself?
I do half and half.
Half and half.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you thought about when you work on this piece, do you have divided up into different sections?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And have you thought about starting in different spots? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so one thing that I think is very helpful, you know, is to find the spots, you know, clear divisions of the sections, and starting in each different spot. And one thing that I think is helpful is to be able to start here, like for example, start from, I don't know, maybe the last, being able to start from there, maybe just making sure, being able to do your left hand alone by itself, and going backwards. So starting from this point here, and then starting from this point here, and starting from this point. So by going backwards like that, you're really testing your knowledge of the sections. And if something happens, then you have somewhere to focus on, or maybe jump to. Not that anything's going to happen, of course. You don't want to be thinking like that. But I think that's one strategy, obviously, that you were talking about, your left hand work alone, singing the melody. I definitely think you could do left hand alone without thinking about the right hand as well. I think one thing that we find with a lot of the left hand line, it's not as melodic, because a lot of the time, especially in Bach, it depends on the composer. But I think a lot of the time, it might just be some kind of a bass line like this. It's difficult for us. What's helpful when I tell my students is that when you work on memory, there are a lot of different elements of memorization that will help that. There's obviously the tactile memory, feeling on the keyboard. There's also the visual memory, remembering how it looks on the score. But there's also the oral memory, remembering how it sounds too, right? So one thing like you could do you want to get your score out? Just something that you can add to your practice is to go through the left hand, and sometimes it's helpful to sing it to yourself. So I'm talking about measure 155. So we're just going from the back. I don't know why I picked that. Yeah, I don't know why I picked that spot, like this section here, like this page, right? So, you know, your right hand is going. So you will probably agree with me that right hand is quite easy to remember, right? Because the right hand is kind of the same pattern. It's going back and forth between this chord, this chord, right? And then right. What about the left hand? The left hand is a little bit trickier because analysis will be helpful. You understand analysis, right?
Yeah.
So analysis is basically understanding the harmonic of the chord,
Yeah.
and then there's B flat chord with M, and this chord, and then but the other thing that you could do is also sing it so that it becomes more of a familiar memory for you, oral memory. Oral being remembering from the from the
ear.
from the ear. So what I would suggest to my students is to sing. Because look, I think it's easy to remember this progression, but sometimes those measures that link, you might forget about that. Or also, right? So you want to try that?
Yeah.
The tenor lead. Yeah, you have to remember. Right. Anyway, so that's one thing that I would suggest to do. And look, it's more helpful when your left hand has the melody. Do you see how? So that's easier too. Sometimes also you might find that you need to check your right hand as well. So that's just a little bit of a tip to help you a little bit with your memory. I think you're doing a pretty good job with your memory. Would you say when you're memorizing, if I had to give you the 3 different types of memory, which one is the one that you find it easiest? So like there's the tactile memory, remembering how it feels on the keyboard. There's the visual memory, remembering how it looks, and then there's the oral memory, remembering how it sounds. Which one's the easiest for you, do you think?
I think both visual and oral.
Okay,
Yeah.
both visual and oral. Okay, great. Yeah, it's always really helpful to do that. The other thing that you have to remember too is like there's a feeling sometimes when we get nervous on stage, right? We feel like we are not trusting ourselves too.
Yeah,
The
so
self-confidence.
I just feel I can't see the keyboard.
Yeah.
And the light is so light. It's so dark.
Yeah, and there's all these sort of things that happen that just being comfortable on the stage is important too. So maybe before your recital, maybe you should try to come in here a couple times, and hopefully Professor Burleson will be okay with that, to come in, and then just getting used to the lighting in here, getting used to the piano and everything, and try to just visualize that. So that'll hopefully help you. Yeah, just getting back to the piece itself. I think you've done a great job with everything. Is very rhythmic. It's very happy. A lot of it's very lively. One thing that I definitely want to work a little bit with you is just thinking a little bit about contrast, because you know that this work was not originally for piano, right?
Harpsichord.
It was for harpsichord. And do you know what kind of a harpsichord it was written for, specifically?
I'm sorry, I don't know.
Oh, that's okay. One thing that I would suggest, the great thing about having recordings on YouTube, there's so many things available now, and just so quickly you can just click on the button. I would suggest that you maybe listen to a recording on a harpsichord, and especially one that has a video, so you can see what's going on in terms of the harpsichord. What's cool about this work, amongst other Bach's works, is that it was actually written for a 2-manual harpsichord, which has like one keyboard here and one keyboard on top. So there's 2 different keyboards, right? And the point of having the 2 different keyboards is that the bottom part is actually plucking a lot of different strings. So there's a lot more notes being sounded when you play each key, whereas the top one is a much it creates a much softer effect because it's plucking less strings. So in other words, whereas like a harpsichord, you can't really change the dynamic using the touch or the speed of your of your playing, you can change dynamic by playing on this keyboard or this keyboard. So when you play on the upper keyboard, it's a lot softer sounding, and then when you play on this keyboard, and it's really cool to watch harpsichordists play this because they go back and forth like this. So one hand is going to be playing on the upper keyboard, and then the other hand is going to be playing on the lower keyboard. So you notice how Bach actually very, very curiously has dynamics in the score. And by the way, this is a great addition. So you basically know for sure that this is what Bach wrote. And we have here piano, and we have here forte. So it means that the harpsichordist would play the right hand on the top keyboard, and then the left hand will be on the bottom because he wanted this one to be louder. So I mean, look, we're playing on a modern instrument, and so we have to interpret it on this instrument. But I think it's interesting to see at least how Bach kind of imagined it would be in terms of the dynamics, even though it's a lot different playing on plucking, having a lot of strings being plucked and a less strings being plucked, as opposed to the speed of the hammer hitting the string, as opposed to this, right? So I definitely think that you can really try as much as you can to enhance dynamics now. And so one thing that's helpful is to imagine also, because this is it's a work for solo keyboard, but what Bach is actually doing is he's kind of recreating that contrast between the large ensemble, the tutti ensemble, and the solo ensemble. Like, have you studied concerto grossos before in history, in music history? Well, there was a Baroque genre which is basically one of the influences for the solo concerto, right? And this is being called an Italian concerto. It's almost kind of like the orchestra and the piano are all in the same instrument, right? So like the opening part, I would say is a kind of like a real clear tutti section, almost like everyone is playing. So it's all very big, very joyful, a lot of sound, right? But then when you get to so I think that is a much smaller ensemble. So when you're practicing this, you have to try to imagine, even though you're playing on a piano, try to imagine the larger ensemble starting and then the smaller ensemble in these moments here. And it's helpful to also try to mark in the score where you feel like it's the tutti section. Probably the easiest way is to find the theme. Anytime you hear that theme, that's going to be probably the tutti section, right? Because that's kind of how. So can we start from the beginning now? So the first thing that I want you to do is to maybe try to create contrast between the sections, and then we can talk about between the hands. All right. So can you maybe start from the beginning, and then can you try to give me a much different sound here?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's try. Left hand, or do you want to bring out right hand, or you just want to drop everything?
I just want to right hand be more softer. And
okay.
A little bit left hand.
Little bit left hand. Okay. So maybe. So can you really drop your right hand? And let's try just your right hand only. Try it.
Okay.
imagine the key like not playing all the way down. And I understand that it's all about how fast you go into the key. Sometimes it's helpful to imagine just halfway on the key and staying very close to the key. So. Can you try that? Right, and you want to keep the tempo. So keep the tempo. Okay, so now I'm hearing some difference now.
Yeah.
Okay, so think really close to the key. So can we go back? Can we go 17? What did you guys think? Could be more. Could be a little bit softer. Yeah, could be a little more. Yeah. Let's try that one more time. Good. Thank you. So you know what's happening, Hongxi,
Yeah.
right? What's happening is you start. And then when you get to the E flat, it's loud again. So even though you have the physical move under the larger interval, you have to try to control your finger a little. Can you just try that? Alright, so do you accent a little bit your E flat? Yeah?
Maybe I change the fingering.
My suggestion for you would be to go through every hand. The thing is, I understand, like, sometimes we think we want to play softer, right? We want to do it. We think, oh, I'm going to do it this way, right? So, but it's, what's happening, what we're hearing from the piano is very different from what you're thinking, right? So you have to make sure that whatever you're thinking is going to happen on the piano, right? So that means you're going to go through every single time you want to do piano, and you're going to check that you're really playing a piano. And then maybe whatever, forte there. Can we try that? Right hand only? Good, yeah, that's much better. Can you give me your, maybe... Yeah, you could try to do it more softer. Yeah. Yeah, that's excellent.
Yeah. Okay.
Good. Yeah. So I definitely would encourage you to try to do that throughout the whole piece. Anytime you want to try to do that. Now the other thing that we want to try to work on too is a little bit more shaping. And I noticed your teacher or whoever wrote already these crescendo to crescendo marks, right? Are you consciously thinking to do that?
Yeah. But
so
when I play, not as my thinking.
Yeah, no, I understand. So you want to go and then coming down, and the left hand going up, right? Yeah. And then what about when you get to here? Are you thinking about also which hand you want, left hand or right hand, or which is important here and there?
I think it's right hand, the top note is the most.
Yeah, so. Right. So do you want to just try that right hand only? Even if it's slower, yeah? but that's part of the other voice. Right?
Oh,
Isn't the half note part of the other voice? Right? So there's two different voices. You have so you don't want to combine them. You don't want to do that, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe you do. Yeah. Yeah. I think that sounds better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to try from the beginning now and see if you can do a good crescendo going up? Yeah.
Both hands.
Yeah. But
Okay.
Also, which one do you want? Do you want? What do you want? There's two F's, right? You have t. Do you want to go?
So I think maybe the second F is more important.
Okay. Ba. So. Pa. All right. Good. Excellent. Excellent. Now, in this texture, right? So you have. So which one do you want? Do you want to bring out left hand and right hand?
I only want to bring left hand top notes.
So, you mean right hand or left hand? Sorry.
Right hand, the top might be with
What? So you want? Okay, go ahead and try that.
Okay.
Good. And then do you want to think about maybe going ta, ta, doing crescendo, decrescendo, right?
Okay.
Yeah, those kinds of things I think are very helpful and more, yeah. So then you want to try to also lighten this middle one. So. There you go. What do you guys think? Yeah, excellent. Very good. And look, I understand when you get nervous, when you're thinking about, you're focusing on certain things. And I understand that because look, you know, anytime I have to think about playing Bach, I get very stressed out as well. Mostly because I have an idea of how I want it to sound, and I know how difficult that is. I think there's a part of us that we have to just trust. After a certain point, when we've been practicing that much, and we know all the notes in both hands, you have to release that anxiety from yourself and to trust you know the notes. And what helps me get over sometimes a little bit of anxiety is to focus on other things than just the notes, but thinking about the dynamic, thinking about the shape, phrasing, thinking about character of the piano. If you can focus on those things, your finger's going to just keep going.
Keep going.
Yeah. So that's just a little bit of advice, because I'm going to be nervous tomorrow too. So you know, I feel like just stressed thinking about it. But no, those are the things that help me when I get more stressed out. I feel like if I can just think about what could I make this performance as interesting as possible, rather than thinking about what problem am I going to have, then that usually helps me get through it. And of course you want to enjoy your performance as well. So that's also the part of it that helps. When you can do all these different things, it's more enjoyable as well. Yeah. Do you want to pick up another section? Is there a certain part that you're having a little difficulty with
Yeah,
that I can
I
help
think
you
so.
with, and we can work a little bit on somewhere.
Yeah, from measure 131.
So from 131. So
It's very confused.
So let's just have a look here. Do you want to maybe play a little bit of that, or do you want to go a little before? Do you want to?
You can play one.
Yeah. Do you want to go from around here, maybe?
Here, yeah.
Yeah.
Or here.
So do you want?
132.
Yeah. Do you want to start from here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. To me, I made a few notes here while I was listening to some recordings, and I noticed that moment is where you have another solo section. Solo meaning imagining one or two instrument only instead of like 20 instruments, right? So smaller group. So you have. When I hear that kind of writing, I'm thinking about music box. Do you know? Have you seen like one of those boxes that you can wind up and the music is very tinkling, very kind of high pitched. Yeah, like a music box. So I think of I imagine a very delicate sort of articulation. You could also imagine like a little bit shorter with your left hand and lighter. Do you want to just try that moment? Yeah. And then we can work on the next section. Yeah. Your left hand. Do you want to try it even shorter? Material is quite big, right? So you have sorry, I can't play. Yeah, do you want to try a bit before that? Yeah. To be able to start in all the different places. Yeah, so that's something that you should do. In your preparation, I would pick out all sorts of strange places to start and see if you can do it. Yeah, that'll really test your memory as well. Yeah, you want to just go right from. I'm imagining, I'm thinking like so this part here, Bach is I would say playing around with that motive. Da da dun dun. That motive, right? He's doing it in different keys. What key do you think is in? Is it an E major, do you think?
So it's not actually E major.
It's
because this F is
okay.
E major chord. Yeah, but the first measure maybe is E major.
So you whatever the key you want to maybe bring out. And And what do you think about? I'm just trying to give you some ideas here. What do you think about the articulation? Do you want to make it legato, or do you want to make it more staccato? What do you think there?
Not really legato and not so jumping. Like just emphasis some notes like.
Okay. Yeah. So
like
all right.
this,
You want to try that? Hands together. About each one of those and listen as much as you can to try to bring out and then thinking about, do you want to keep it soft or do you want to grow there?
So soft at the beginning and a little bit grow.
Little bit grow. Okay, yeah.
Okay, so I
Try
try this.
that. Sometimes you can get the clue from the way the music sounds, and when the music, when the right hand's going higher and the gap between the hands is getting wider, feels more like you want to get more excited, more dynamic, right? So that means if you're going to do that, you've got to start even softer to try to bring out that change. Right? So going from, also one thing that you might want to consider doing, and this is again on the theme of trying to create contrast, maybe making this maybe really, really light and really like a music box. Like, so when you get, it becomes more heavy, maybe a little bit more legato, and then grows there. This becomes more serious here, whereas this one's more playful. And then it becomes more serious, and then we're back into this whole 2D section. Yeah. So, I mean, those will give you some ideas. Sorry? Yeah, okay. Yeah, so those are some ideas, Minji, because I think you were doing a great job with just the nuts and bolts and the technique and everything like that. But I think now you should relax about that preparation.
More relaxed.
Okay? And then also what I think would help you relax too is thinking a lot more about different things, like where can I make a contrast, and then asking yourself, am I really playing softly? How soft am I playing? Sometimes it's helpful to record yourself. Do you record yourself?
Yes,
too?
yes.
Yeah. And you really ask yourself, is that really soft? Because sometimes we're thinking about it and we're intending to do it, but we don't necessarily do it on the piano, maybe because we're nervous or we're not thinking. But I definitely think you're on the way, so thank you very much for playing.
Yeah,
you're welcome. Thank you. excited to play this piece. How do you feel? Let me ask you first. Like, how do you feel that went? How do you feel your preparation is for? You're playing this in a recital.
Yes.
Yeah, and you obviously the whole thing. Yeah.
I feel like I was focusing until a certain moment when I got distracted, but in the whole, I was surprisingly self-confident. I don't often get to play here, but I was listening to your advice of coming here before the recital, maybe a couple of days before, and getting used to this, and just feel more comfortable. Sometimes the space changes.
Sure. And sometimes, just being in a different mindset on the stage and the lights and the different piano can be very different to what you're used to just practicing at your home and working and such. So there's definitely. Listen, I wanted to congratulate you. It's sounding, there's a lot of really great things about in your playing. It's sounding very confident. It sounds like you know what you want to do. It sounds like you're managing. The thing is with this piece is, it's like almost kind of like there's so many things going on here. There's so many strange syncopations, strange textures. It's encompassing the whole keyboard. Sometimes you don't even know whether like he's imagining a piano, to arrive, or is creating wanting something different. And I totally understand that, it's a very personal piece. Everybody has their own ideas and such. I definitely want to just give you a few sort of like ideas and tips just to guide your own journey with this. The first thing I thought about was wondering, how are you feeling in terms of the phrasing and the shaping? It's really difficult having to play all these half notes. And obviously if we were a singer, if we were a brass instrument, violinist, or whatever, that we were actually moving through a long note, it would be easier to imagine da, 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 feeling that very, very smooth, majestic. How do you imagine you want to? Do you feel like you're comfortable with the timing, the way the melody is sounding? I mean,
I often think that it depends a lot from if you want to follow the metronome marking or not.
Sure.
Because obviously if it's slower, then the melody tends to lag a little bit and it loses that shape. So I'm trying to find something that I tried the A, and it's really fast, and sometimes I feel it takes away from the melodic line, but I'm trying to find a midway through the 80 and too slow, obviously. There is thinking about not sforzando, but trying to appoggiando some notes. Yes, and then coming a little bit down to the D, the second system, and then growing back up with the sforzando, something like that.
I feel like what's challenging about this left hand is because the way the figuration goes back and forth, right, and moves back to like this. It's not exactly the most pianistic. It's some ways pianistic, but there's a lot of jumps, and the way I feel about the left hand is almost kind of like he wants like some orchestral sound to cover, to at least be the basis of this beautiful outpouring of passion in this theme, right? And so when I play this, I try as much as I can to focus on the sound that the sum total of all of those notes creates. Obviously if you start with the G at the time, it's fine, but try to find I try as much as I can to think about this being a kind of like a full sustained sound that's that's created from this figuration and the pedal. Is that kind of how you were imagining it as well?
Yes, this is definitely this droning melody that serves as a tapestry for the melody.
And then the other thing that we have to also think about too is how we approach this melody, because unfortunately the way the piano works is that immediately when we play a note, the sound dissipates. So trying to find the right, I would say, key speed to create a sound that can continue in a phrase going through that. I found that, I mean, my impressions were there were a little bit of breaks in the phrase that I wondered whether you want to do, whether it's intentional or not, or whether you, so maybe the first thing I want to try to do is maybe work a little bit with you that first section to see if you can, maybe we can just discuss how things are going in terms of the phrasing and stuff. Yeah? Okay. You want to go from the beginning?
Sure. System.
This one, right? Because what I hear, I'm just exaggerating. I hear this one, right? So can we maybe think? Try to even out a little bit more the phrase there. If you think that this is the goal.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So less forzato in the other ones.
Maybe, yeah, but I think it has it has to do with the combination of the timing that you take to make the sforzando.
Right.
Perhaps we could do the sforzandos the same, like. The timing could be compressed. But before each one, because remember, like when we want to highlight a moment, we can do that both by dynamic or both by timing too. So the question is, do you want to? How do you want to time that? And I'm just posing that question to you so you can come up with your own solution, because I don't want to make you do something that you're not comfortable with.
Okay.
So do you want to try from the beginning one time? And also, what are your thoughts about the timing of the sorry, my mistake. Did you want to keep going in the same forward motion? Do you want to pull back a little bit? That's very personal.
Definitely pulling back
a little bit, yeah.
Cleaning a little bit the pedal to help the piano.
Yeah.
But yes, definitely giving a window to the piano. I don't know if I can always do it.
And this is annoying, isn't it? This is kind of annoying, isn't it? Because you want the G sharp. It's important, but the timing of that
sometimes
is
it's
difficult.
too slow. I realize it's too slow.
Well, anyway, those are just some thoughts of mine. I like what you did there. Just keep working in your own way to figure out the best solution for that. How about we keep going, and I won't stop you this time, and we can move on through to the next section.
Okay, from top, right?
From the beginning. I like very much what you did there. One thing that I wanted to just point out to you is it's kind of annoying how Schumann does this, but sometimes it's helpful just to double check after you've been working on this for a while and you're playing from memory and everything like that. Just double check a little bit the rhythm, and to play a little bit more metronomically, because sometimes you realize that the offbeat is slightly faster than you imagine. So, like for example, in the first page. Notice how that goes. So that's something you might want to just double check that you recognize that you're doing that. And then also in this next part, which I love. Oh, but before I get to that, one thing you could still do is end your phrases a little bit better. So, like for example. So if you want that phrase to come down to that point, I really think that you should try as much as you can to listen to how you're tapering that off, and that the last sound is super, super important, right? So you have. Right? So those are little details, which you're at that level now where, you know, these are little fine-tuning things that you need to make sure. And then, do you notice here? This rhythm, and then here is a quarter note. Right. So you have. It's kind of annoying how he does that, because sometimes he doesn't do that, right? He has a different value there. So I think that you want to just be careful just to make sure, because it sounds very different the way when you print it and in a different way. So just something to think about. Do you want to try a little bit that shape?
Yes.
Could you try from wherever is easy? Maybe from the piano. Just on that previous page. I can turn the page for you.
Okay. I should know it.
The timing was good, but I think the beat was just a bit too loud for my taste.
Oh, okay.
So you can continue with. Do you want to try that one more time?
Just set up that in.
So there is a little bit late. So you have. Differentiations, because look, this piece is full of offbeats and all these sort of things. So I think when he does an onbeat, I think it's quite significant, right? And then one thing I just want to make sure that you're doing, because I know this happens a lot, that you didn't learn this differently. Could you try from 59? Just can you run through that for a second? So look, this whole section, I thought you did a nice job with this whole section. It's difficult to manage this left hand here. Are you feeling pretty relaxed when you're playing these kind of with
relaxed is really hard.
No, I
Complicated,
understand.
but yes,
Yeah.
I think it's meant to be relaxed.
And just before that, we have this whole section. So just, I noticed that in sometimes there were a few sort of hesitations. I mean, like sort of rubatos where you kind of did the same thing each time. Okay, so you want to try to mix it up a little bit. So like you want to. So just be aware of that.
Right.
And then I know this whole section is challenging, but I think you did a pretty good job with that whole section. Every time I think about this whole, there's almost kind of like Schumann is creating this sort of world where he is presenting something and then showing the offbeat, and then suddenly it's like chaos, and then back to order again. And so every time I think about that, I sort of feel like to myself, how much chaos do I want, and how much order do I want in my performance? And for me, that sometimes can be it can be a fluid situation. Like maybe one day I'm feeling like, oh, I want this to be really quite chaotic, and other times I might just want to feel like, oh, this one to be regular. What are your thoughts about that whole thing, that whole section there?
Yeah, it's a little disorienting when we start with the accents, and I think maybe the point where I can reassess the situation.
And I love this whole section here. It's all together, and then all of a sudden it's off.
Right.
And I think it's cool to highlight that chaos a little bit. So you can play around with that.
Right.
I did want to work a little bit on this section, this whole sort of I guess the second theme sort of section. I think for me, I hear this a lot more simply. Like I'm thinking, tom tom pom pom ta 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 ra ra ra, and then a very simple melody, right? And I understand that when you're playing with all these kind of like offbeats, it's easy to forget sometimes that it's really just. And I think this is the tender moment, you know, this is a very, like maybe a love melody that Robert is composing for Clara, you know. So I think, look, when there's so much chaos going on in the piece, there's so much texture, so much busyness going on, I think it's nice in the piece to have a little bit more repose in the playing. So I might suggest maybe a lot more sort of flatter in terms of maybe just keeping it really, really simple and less focus on the offbeats and more kind of on the simplicity of the theme. That would be my suggestion. I don't know if you feel the same way. Yeah.
It makes definitely sense. After all the chaos before, to take a break.
Yeah. So do you want to try that section? Maybe going into it a little bit. thinking about the actual tempo too, just thinking through. Yeah, it's about, I mean, are you hoping to try to keep it the same, pretty much? I mean, even though it's weird, right? It just feels like, he comes from a ritardando. But he doesn't actually put a tempo.
Wow.
So, what does that mean? Yeah. Do you think about that being an up tempo there, or you?
Probably not as strict as the beginning.
Yeah.
But definitely maybe resetting from
yeah.
a little bit. Maybe I could do it a little faster. And then I have all the retardandos coming anyways as well.
I think that sometimes you could maybe, like, some of these inner voices, you could shape them a little bit better. So. So try to match a little bit more the way that you're doing each of the shapes. So like the first one. So maybe you could even play it and separately too to help you with that. And the other point that I wanted to make too, I feel like the wrists are very important, as you can imagine, and also the way the sound, that the long notes move through the texture are important. Even the dying moment of a note is important too. So for example, this whole business here. This quarter note rest is super important, right? So you don't want to, first of all, there's a ritardando, and then there's a rest, and then a quarter note. So you don't want to make that rest too short either. So you have and then here the E flat. I think that E flat should continue going. And also should affect the way that you play the outside chords too, because I think having that makes sense harmonically, and then we have a break, and then this, which you do beautifully, and managing this whole voicing at the top, and then this E, and then wait, maybe the B flat's still holding, right? So maybe that's a mistake. And then the left hand comes away, and then the F. You should really try as much as you can to listen to the decay of the E and the B flat, and just playing the F just softly enough that it's a new note, but it's still kind of like, you know, I mean, I think all of these little details, these little things will really enhance your playing, because I feel like you're really close. But there are some moments where I thought that you held notes beautifully, but then sometimes you sort of didn't do them. So that's just something that I might suggest. Do you want to try that moment?
Just that adagio.
Maybe from there. Yeah. Yeah, and make sure that you hold that for the full value. So if you're going, and there's a ritardando, but right. So making sure that you feel that one. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4. Right. So whatever tempo you're doing it at, whether it's a ritardando or whatever, you still have to feel those pulses. So I know it's kind of like a puzzle sometimes to think that through, and I think sometimes when you're doing a lot of run-throughs and you're sometimes not really conscious about those, but again, those little details. Also, this whole in-tempo thing, I always was like wondering, why does he have to write it like that? Why does he have to have an eighth note rest? But one thing you should do is make sure that you're playing the same note value. So sometimes it's helpful to just at least play it a couple times, really metronomically, to feel that. Because I think maybe you were doing the C sharp faster or something was there, but I didn't feel there were 3/4 notes there. So, do you want to just try that? I know these are really small things, but just,
especially if
5 minutes.
you go on and study this for a long time.
Yes, for a long time, you're not quite sure.
You forget about it.
Can we do that? And I thought you did the middle section beautifully. Actually, I thought I liked exactly the feeling of it. It's so beautiful. This kind of you know, the difficulty of having that sustained and then all this jumping around the left hand. I thought you did it really, really great. That was a very difficult section, so we don't need to work on that. But I did want to do a little bit the ending, if that's okay. So this. Can we just try a little bit of that? I know we don't have much time left, but one thing I want you to do is just make sure you're counting everything. Even with the ritardando there, you need to make sure you hold that. So, rest, rest. So whatever, you have to find your tempo. What was the adagio tempo, and make sure you count those. Because I think a lot of the times I felt like you kind of jumped off things a little too early for my ears, and don't forget too, when you're creating this magical moment in the ending, this beautiful, peaceful moment, I think sometimes just a little bit more time on a note, just a little bit more space in the audience is going to be much more significant. I think sometimes as pianists we're so used to wanting to jump off the notes quickly. And just, if you don't mind, because I know we haven't got much time, could we just do the very last part of this one? Try to count as many, all the beats.
Okay.
Yeah, so. I thought that was better this time, I think, because you're counting. Yes. But do you notice how, like, even though it's a ritardando, there's ritardando, so actually it should go even slower. It shouldn't actually be in tempo. It's actually should be slower. So you realize, right, when you 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. This feels like the longest note, isn't it, right? And 5. Pa, 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 pa. It has to be even slower than that. So I know I would just double check what you're doing there, because it's a really magical moment anyway. So why not milk it for all the moment that you can have? But the first thing I would do is just to check all of that counting and making sure that you're at least doing it in time. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you for
great job.